Hey, welcome everybody. I think probably 14 people will watch this video, but I'm going to start doing some video blogs. I'm going to say video diaries. That's not really what it is. Start doing some video blogs on the Royals. Today is February 18th. Pitchers and catchers have already reported. Most of the squad for the Royals are already down in Surprise, Arizona, and yesterday or early this morning is when we heard that Eric Hosmer had signed with the Padres. So I sat down on my computer this morning and I was thinking, what does the Royals roster make? What does it really look like? Or what does at least the lineup look like? So I started looking at it and I'm like, man, not only have they been really inactive at this offseason, but and I knew this team was going to probably struggle. This is a potential 55 win team, I believe. Trying not to be too pessimistic. If a lot of things go right, obviously, I think they could be very fairly competitive, but not really quite sure. So let's take a look at this, and we'll start. Just go around and look at the various positions. We know who the catchers are: Perez and Butera. I don't really need to talk about them. We'll skip first base for a second. Second base, obviously, Whit Merrifield established himself for the past two seasons as an everyday major league player. Ned Yost has talked about a little bit in the spring training that Whit may not play second base. He might play the outfield. He may play third base. You know, I I can't speak for what Ned's going to do. Ned sometimes surprises me. Um, but for right now, Whit Merrifield is the starting second baseman. Shortstop, you have Alcides Escobar. The Royals brought back on a $2.5 million contract, so he got about a $6 million pay cut. Um, you know, I think what the Royals should do, if they're really going to embrace the rebuild process, they should more than likely just go ahead and play. Uh, what's the guy's name? Mondesi. They should just throw him out there every day at shortstop and should have re-signed Escobar. What it is, what it is. $2.5 million. It's not that big of a risk. It's only a 1 year contract. Third base is interesting. Let's get back to third base a second. Let's move on to the outfield. Outfield, you have Alex Gordon, Jorge Bonifacio, Jorge Soler, Paulo Orlando, and Billy Burns. Obviously, Gordon's going to play every day as long as he's healthy. Jorge Soler is going to play every day too, whether fans like it or not. Soler is out of options. It means he cannot be sent to the minor leagues without passing through waivers first, and then he would get picked up. At four, I think he's making about 4.2 million this year. I mean, it's a fairly cheap option for someone if they wanted to grab him off waivers if the Royals decided they no longer wanted him. So that's really not something the Royals can do. They're going to have to play him, and he's going to have to produce. And if he doesn't, it's going to be a ridiculous trade, trading the best relief pitcher in baseball. So Bonifacio last year, he showed that he can play every day. He had a little bit of a swoon there in the middle of the season, and then he didn't play a whole lot after the Royals picked up Melky Cabrera. The thing I like about Jorge Bonifacio is that he's not just a fastball hitter. Quite a few of his home runs, I believe he hit 15 or 16 last year. Quite a few of his home runs came on curveballs, came on breaking balls that obviously were still mistakes. They weren't pitcher's pitches, but the ability to hit the curveball and hit mistakes on it that's really good for a bat, especially for a young batter. So I'm actually very optimistic that Jorge Bonifacio is going to be someone who's going to come in and do a fairly good job for the Royals. He's not a good defensive outfielder. Neither is Jorge Soler. I think those guys are going to be splitting time between right field and DH. Center field, you've got Orlando and Billy Burns. Neither of these players excite me. Obviously, Paulo Orlando has a kind of a cult following from when he got brought up with the Royals in 2015, and his first six hits were all triples, or five hits. It was kind of something ridiculous like that. Orlando he's a solid player, and I say he's a solid fourth outfielder. He's not good as a starter. Um, I think he has value for the team. Billy Burns is all speed. He has no power. He's a decent defensive player, but neither of those two guys really. If they're both in the team, the Royals are in a lot of trouble. Because the Royals re-signed Alcides Escobar, what I would like to see the Royals do is to look at Raul Mondesi Jr. in center field. He's obviously very athletic. He's very fast, and it's a premium defensive position. And if you're going to play Alcides Escobar at shortstop, you're going to play Merrifield at second. Mondesi needs to play, and maybe center field is an option. You may think, well, center field, he's never played the outfield before. Well, neither had Alex Gordon until they decided to try him out there, and oh man, he was a lot better than we thought he was when he was kind of a failed at third base. So might be something the Royals look into. Just my opinion. And Ned has been asked about that in spring training, and he's kind of shot down the idea. But Ned a lot of times doesn't offer too much information or too much insight. Once the games actually start, we'll see what happens. And kind of like when they threw Chester Cuthbert out there at second base the last couple of years, and obviously those were just disasters. So speaking of Chester Cuthbert, it's a good segue. Let's talk about third base before we get over to first base. The Royals have two options here. They have Cuthbert and they have Hunter Dozier. Hunter Dozier is 25, 26 years old. He's not a spring chicken by any means. He's got some power. At best, he's an average defensive third baseman. The numbers in the minor leagues show that he doesn't have a whole lot of data to back it up, but it's average to below average defensive metrics. So, but he has the potential to be a better hitter. What we have on Cuthbert, we actually have a data set. He played almost the entire 2016 season as the Royals starting third baseman when Moustakas was injured. Chester Cuthbert is a horrible defensive third baseman. Yeah, he's atrocious. He will cost the Royals 2 to 3, maybe 4 games by his defense alone. That's not good. He's just absolutely atrocious in the field. At the plate, he's a 260, 270 hitter who might hit you 12 to 15 home runs. That's the very definition of a replacement level player. He's good to have on the bench. He's a good guy to take some, to play on a Sunday afternoon game or to play, the getaway day, things like that. He's good to give guys a break here and there. Playing him too much is going to expose him, which is what happened in 2016. He actually played pretty well for a while at the plate, really wore down second half of the season, and he was an offensive liability in the last month when the Royals were trying to push for the playoff for a wild card spot in 16, and one of the reasons they couldn't get this is they just had some holes in their lineup, and Cuthbert was one of the big holes. So as we look over at first base, it seems like some of the experts are saying that, hey, let's play Cuthbert at third and Dozier at first. I think that would be a monumental mistake. Look, Dozier has more upside and part of the reason he has more upside is because we don't know what he's going to be. We know what Cuthbert is. We know who he is. We know what he brings to the table. If this is a true rebuild, let's go ahead and let's embrace it. Let's sign ourselves up for 58 wins and just go forward with it. And let's play Dozier at third. And what I would do if I was the manager of the Royals, I would play Ryan O'Hearn at first base. He deserves the shot, honestly, and he's going to get a lot of at bats in the preseason and the spring training. What he does with those, obviously, we'll see what happens. I think he is not at the top of the list to play third base on Ned Yost's depth chart. I think if Yost had his way, he would be Dozier at first and Hunter Dozier at first and Chester Cuthbert at third. I would put Ryan O'Hearn at first base. He's a power bat who can get on base and he can hit home runs. He's your prototypical first baseman. And the Royals may just find themselves a gem here that everyone else has just kind of overlooked. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. So the Royals have gone through quite a few of first basemen, before Hosmer. You think of all the Ryan Sheelys of the world, and man, I can't remember some of the abominations that we threw out there. I mean, even Billy Butler, obviously, but Butler was a really terrible defensive first baseman. Maybe it was just Ryan Sheely, but I remember. Was it Kia Kaihue and there was somebody else that was always like a triple A star, but never could cut it at the big league level. I'm blanking on the names. So that's kind of what the around the horn looks like. And of course, you've got Raymond Torres, who's a backup middle infielder. You got Ryan Goins. So Royals fans remember him. He played for the Toronto Blue Jays in 2015 and the infamous Game 2 where he was calling for the ball that Ben Zobrist hit and Bautista peeled off, and then so did Goins, and the ball dropped, and that's how the Royals ultimately started their rally. Ryan Goins is an interesting player. I think he has a decent shot to make the team. I don't think he's going to be a starter, but his versatility and where he can play, I think really he can play second base, he can play shortstop, he can play third. Um, I think I would have him on the team over Torres. He's just a better hitter in my opinion. I would even put him on the team ahead of Chelsea Cuthbert because Cuthbert can play one position, third base, and he can play it poorly. At least Ryan Goins can play every infield position and possibly, I don't know if he can play the outfield or not, but he's a pretty athletic guy. Um, so we'll see. We'll see what happens there. As for the starting pitching, you have Ian Kennedy, Jason Hamill, Danny Duffy, Nate Carnes, and Jake Junis. And I suppose Jesse Hans could get a look too. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of competing for for the starting rotation, unless Junis and Carnes just completely do not impress in spring training. I think the Royals starting five is pretty much locked in. Now the bullpen arms, man, this is where it's going to get interesting. Obviously, you have Kelvin Herrera, you have Brandon Maurer. Those are really the only two guys I think that are set. Brian Flynn, possibly Willie Peralta. I'm forgetting some other guys, I'm sure. Kevin McCarthy, Kyle Zimmer. I don't know. He might be in line for something. I don't know. Josh Stalmont, maybe. There's just a lot of spots open in the Royals bullpen, and I guess this is going to work its way out. But the main point of what I wanted to say in this video, though, is just how I really think the Royals need to look at Hunter Dozier as their starting third baseman and Ryan O'Hearn as their starting first baseman. Obviously, Moustakas, Hosmer, and Kane are all gone, and this is a new day, a new page in Royals baseball. The Royals are not going to be that good this year, but maybe they'll surprise us. Maybe Soler and Bonifacio will turn into Bo Jackson and Danny Tartabull, and maybe Alex Gordon will refine his 2014 season, and Whit Merrifield even builds on what he did last year, and Salvador Perez takes more than 17 walks this year. So it's going to be an interesting season. I'm pretty excited to see what happens with the Royals. But just because I'm excited, I want to see where it goes. And yeah, I wanted Moustakas and I wanted Hosmer back, but I knew it didn't make a lot of sense financially. And once I made peace with the fact that they were going to be gone, now I know that hey, I can start to look forward to the next wave of what the Royals do. And I know this year is going to be a struggle for the most part. I just hope it's not that long of a drought before we can legitimately think about playoffs again. Because really, the Royals' playoff drought, and while it was a long time, 29 years from '85 to 2014, the Royals were still a contending team up through 1994. They had a couple seasons where they were down, but they had some pretty solid teams in there too in the late '80s, even early '90s. Especially the '94 team that won 14 in a row and was really making a push there when the strike happened. Who knows what would have happened? Maybe the Royals would have made the playoffs that season. But that's ancient history. So anyway, want to keep these videos somewhat short, and I don't know, we're at about 14 and a half minutes, so I don't want to go too much longer than that. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back in the next couple of days, and we'll talk about how spring training's going. Thanks, everybody.